Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Court nullifies candidacy of Abia State Governor-elect Alex Otiti. Court reinstates Julius Abure as Labour Party National Chairman. Police rescue 2 abducted staff of U.S. Consulate in Anambra. On the foreign scene, G7 leaders agreed to stiffen sanctions against Russia. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Tunde Ido. Justice Muhammad Yunusa of the Federal High Court, Kano, has nullified the candidature of the Abia State Governor-elect Alex Oti and all the candidates of the Labour Party in Abia and Kano State. The court ruled that their emergence was not in compliance with the provisions of the 2022 Electoral Act. In the suit filed by Ibrahim Haruna against the Labour Party and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the court ruled that the failure of the Labour Party to submit its membership register to INEC within 30 days before their primaries renders the process invalid. It ruled that any party that has not complied with the provisions of the Electoral Act cannot be said to have a candidate in an election and cannot be declared winner of an election. It therefore stated that the votes credited to OT were wasted. In his reaction, one of the counsel to Peter Obi, Kenneth Okonkwo, said the court judgment was regrettable.
We were in court when we heard it. What do you expect? The reason people are developing cold feet to the justice delivery in our country is for such orders and rulings. But we have come this far, and there will be no retreat, there will be no surrender. You also saw how a court was disgraced in court today, who came in purporting to represent somebody in a petition that has already commenced. We are there on the 8th of May when this petition commenced, and you just want to break in, as they normally do, breaking into people's properties without authorization. The only thing that is regrettable is that at times they do it with some collusion with some members that ought to be delivering justice, not delivering judgment. Whether the case, we heard it that it's in Kano. Good. By the time it comes to Abuja, maybe where jurisdiction is, I think the people that have the jurisdiction will deliver better justice to that. But just know that it is ephemeral, temporal, and will soon pass away, like the people that came to court today passed away disgracefully.
Meanwhile, the Labour Party chairman in Abia State, C.K. Igara, has countered the court judgment sacking the Abia State Governor-elect Alex Oti and other elected party candidates, noting that the said judgment is dead on arrival and cannot stand. Igara stated this in a statement made available to the journalists in Umuahia today, shortly after the court judgment. The chairman charged all Labour Party candidates and the party faithfuls to remain calm and not panic, adding that the party lawyers were already on top of the matter. He also gave his assurance that the May 29th inauguration of the governor-elect will hold as scheduled. Similarly, the Abia State Governor-elect has advised the state residents to keep calm on his alleged dismissal by a federal high court sitting in Kano State. In another development, Justice Hamza Muazu of a high court in Abuja today granted an order of stay of execution on the suspension of the chairman of Labour Party, Julius Abure. Others are the National Organizing Secretary, Clement Ojukwu, and National Treasurer, Oluchi Okpara, suspended from parading themselves as Labour Party national officer. The petitioners had in an ex parte motion sought the removal of Abure and the 3 other national officers of the party, which the judge granted the order of suspension. The judge, after listening to arguments from the parties, granted the order for stay of execution pending the determination of the appeal filed by the defendants. At the sitting today, the defendants told the court that they have a notice of appeal pending at the Court of Appeal. Still on judicial matters, there was a mild drama at the Court of Appeal in Abuja today as the resumed presidential elections petitions tribunal stopped a senior advocate of Nigeria, Oba Maduabuchi, from representing the Labour Party. At the pre-hearing session, Maduabuchi tried to make a legal representation for the party, which is contesting the outcome of the February 25th election with its candidate, Peter Obi. Maduabuchi told the court that he was briefed by the party to represent them, but this was after another senior advocate, Awakalu, had made an appearance for the party. He was, however, stopped by the panel, who insisted that the legal representation for the petitioners is won. The chairman of the panel told Maduabuchi that he did not file the petition and as such cannot represent the party. In the meantime, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) in the last election, Atiku Abubakar, has told the Presidential Election Petitions Court that the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) is an intruder in its defense of Bola Tinubu on the qualification for the elections. Atiku's counsel accused the electoral body of being a proxy in its petition against Tinubu. The electoral body pleaded with the court to strike out 32 allegations made against Tinubu by Atiku in the petition challenging the declaration of Tinubu as the winner of the February 25th presidential election. But Atiku, through his lead counsel, Chris Uche, filed counter-affidavits in opposition to INEC's request and asked the court to dismiss the electoral body's position. Uche argued in the counter-affidavit that it was not the duty of INEC to do the battle or argue the case of Tinubu, who is second defendant in the petition. He therefore asked the court to dismiss INEC's motion for being gross abuse of court process, lacking in merit, and gross incompetence. Elsewhere, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has expressed displeasure with the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's phone call to the president-elect Bola Tinubu, saying that its basis lacked clarity. On the call, the American government official was said to have emphasized his continued commitment to further strengthen the U.S.-Nigeria relationship with the incoming administration. But in a tweet today, Obi said the 2023 presidential election was still being contested in the court and that the U.S. was expected to await the full resolution of the ongoing judicial process before conferring legitimacy on any of the contending parties. It further stated that the United States should not respond to political development in Nigeria in a manner that faintly suggests taking sides. The Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Brigadier General Y.D. Ahmed, has said the discharge certificate being paraded by Enugu State Governor-elect Peter Mba was not issued by the body. Brigadier General Ahmed, who made the statement in an interview today, said the argument on whether Mba has a valid NYSC certificate or not did not arise because he has told the People's Democratic Party's candidate in the 2023 governorship election that what he presented was as if certificate was fake. Meanwhile, the Enugu State Governor-elect Peter Mba has filed a case against the NYSC demanding 20 billion naira for injuries he claimed to have been inflicted on his person due to the controversies surrounding his certificate. It will be recalled that controversies surrounding Mba's discharge certificate became known publicly in February 2023 when the NYSC, in response to an inquiry by a non-governmental organization, released a letter stating that the certificate submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission was not issued by them.
You know, this case is in court. I may not want to say much, but let me draw your attention. The issue of racketeering in every facet of life is happening in this country. Not only in Nigeria, everywhere you know. So it's not only NYSC. And let me tell you, the issue of the certificate you are talking about, I don't want to talk much about it. They came to NYSC for verification. We said this certificate is not issued from us. I wonder why issue of racketeering will come off when you are talking about elite, somebody who is a graduate, somebody who is well enlightened. You obtain certificate from where? You don't know where you obtain certificate. You don't know how we issue our certificate. So you have problem with certificate. How? You can't go and collect certificate on the street. You can't go and collect certificate in your room. You don't go and collect certificate in the hotel. You should know better. Please, I don't want to talk much about this. The governor-elect is a lawyer. I am not a lawyer, but I know as a DG NYSC, I'm fully aware of this case. He came to me. I told him, I called my director of certification, let me see your certificate. I was so frank and clear to him that this certificate is not from us. I'll show him some few examples just to help him. But he chose to go to court and even to sue whoever they is suing. Well, as far as I'm concerned, NYSC has not been sued. I'm yet to see any from court. I have not seen anything. All you are saying, or what all people are saying, I'm just hearing from outside. I have not received any court order. I have not seen anything.
Governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Umahi, had earlier this week proposed that lawmakers should be given a 3-term tenure limit to save the cost of educating new entrants into the assembly on legislative processes. The senator-elect representing Ebonyi East Senatorial District in the 10th National Assembly also suggested an age limit of 70 years for lawmakers in the upper and lower chambers of the National Assembly. Governor Umahi believes the 4 years given to the senators per term is not enough, adding that they need more time and experience. However, many Nigerians have expressed their displeasure, describing such suggestion as insensitive, as they believe the masses are not being considered. Some Nigerians who spoke to our news crew further stated that if given the chance, politicians will turn such positions to family affair, and the alleged embezzlements by senators will be more rampant.
Is it a birthright? Are they the only person? And for those of them who are there, majority of them, are they doing the right thing? The masses are suffering. People graduated from school, no job. And you are saying you want to spend 12 years. It's not your birthright. It's not good enough for our democracy. Some people are there to sleep. No more, no less. People are angry. People are hungry. You are thinking 12 years. Why not make it for life?
It's highly it's unreasonable, it's nonsensical, and it's uncalled for. To me, even the 4 years we gave them, how did they use it? Are they using it very well? And we have seen what they have been doing. Most of them, they are going there for their own personal gain. Even the 4 years we gave them, we've not seen the impact on the masses. And I mean, it's from 12 years. I think what they should be proposing for now is that the senator and the National Assembly's job should be on part-time basis, because it's governing our, the masses taxes. So the taxpayer, they are not really seeing anything to show for it. And these senators, they are collecting huge amount of money. So it means that for 12 years, somebody should be there for 12 to do what? For what reason? So to me, it's unacceptable.
Really. Because I believe being a senator, if you are privileged to be a senator, should be a service to the nation and to humanity. And if you are there to serve. You are not there to go and say you want to be there permanently, or say you want to inherit that position year in, year out. You want to be there. Once you've given your service, once you've given your own contribution, leave and let others come.
I don't think I agree with that, because I feel like the way the Nigerian leadership is set up already is more like a one-way thing, because it favors those who have been in government for a very long time. So for them to spend another 12 years, I don't think it's fair to the ordinary people, because it just gives them more time to accumulate wealth to themselves, which is not fair, in my opinion.
And to security matters, police in Anambra State say they have rescued 2 individuals who were kidnapped during Tuesday's attack on the U.S. consulate convoy in Ogbaro local government area. According to a brief statement by spokesman for the Anambra State Police Command, DSP Ikenga Tochukwu, the rescue took place in the early hours of today. The police spokesman disclosed that a joint security force rescued on halt the two victims abducted during the attack on a U.S. convoy along the Atani-Osamela Road in Ogbaru. It further stated that tactical operations were still ongoing and further details will be communicated. This development comes a day after the police arrested two suspects in connection with Tuesday's attack. Preliminary investigations conducted by the police revealed that 7 persons were killed in the assault, out of which 3 were U.S. consulate officials and 4 were mobile police escorts.
17th of this month, May 2023, we had a press briefing here at the police command headquarters on the ambush that happened with some people from the United States Consulate, Lagos, and the action that the security forces in the states, the Army, the Navy, the police, and the DSS have taken. In that briefing, we told you that as at that day, we had lost 7 out of the 9 men who were in 2 vehicles and who were on a convoy to Osamela to assess the environmental impact erosion in that particular place. And we made a promise that the security agencies, the Army, the Navy, the police, the DSS was working around the clock to make sure that the 2 missing people were rescued alive. I am happy to announce to you this morning that at the wee hours of today, the joint security forces comprising of the Army, the Navy, the police, and the DSS rescued the 2 missing people. They are hale and healthy.
In Ekiti State, the Commissioner of Police, Dario Ogundare, today paraded 16 suspects arrested for various criminal activities, including 4 men who were nabbed allegedly for kidnapping activities in the Okeako area of the state and part of Kwara State. Ogundare, who assured that the command will always rise up to its responsibilities to perform its mandatory duty of protecting lives and property of innocent citizens, said the suspect will be charged to court on the completion of investigation. The Commissioner of Police said the police in Ekiti, in conjunction with Kogi State Police Command, arrested one Abu Hassan, popularly known as Danger, and Abubakar Sadiq, who are notorious kidnappers and have been terrorizing innocent citizens in the state. Ogundare said 1 locally made single-barrel gun and 2 live cartridges were recovered from the suspect. The Commissioner of Police added that efforts was ongoing for the possible arrest of other fleeing suspects. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, President Buhari appoints Oluwatoyin Madin as Substantive Accountant General of the Federation. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
James Ajibolaige was a lawyer who obtained his first degree in classics from Nigeria's premier University of Ibadan. Born September 13, 1930, the orator and the polyglot spoke impeccable English, French, Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba languages. His fine diction placed him among classical orators and public speakers like Cicero, the Roman orator. This attribute earned him the prefix Cicero of Esauke. He authored Kaduna Boy, an autobiography biography, The Teenage Diary, Constitution, and The People, among 6 other books. Bola Ige was a colorful politician, elected governor of Oyo State in 1979 and appointed a federal minister in 1999. He was a pioneer founder of Afenifere, the Yoruba social, cultural, and political group. He invested his political sagacity to propel the group to the height of political leadership and decision-making in the southwest of Nigeria. Bola Ige was assassinated on the 23rd December 2001. His murderers are yet to be apprehended till today. Western Spring Television identifies Bola Ige as a watershed character in history. Born 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used his political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. Justice Muhammad Yunusa of the Federal High Court, Kano, has nullified the candidature of the Abia State Governor-elect Alex Otti and all the candidates of the Labour Party in Abia and Kano State. Justice Hamza Muazu of a High Court in Abuja today granted an order of stay of execution on the suspension of the chairman of Labour Party, Julius Abure. Police in Anambra State say they have rescued 2 individuals who were kidnapped during Tuesday's attack on the U.S. consulate convoy in Ogbaro local government area. And on the foreign scene, leaders of the world's richest democracies have agreed to stiffen sanctions against Russia, while also stressing the need to reduce reliance on trade with China. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has launched a nationwide raid of drug joints in an exercise codenamed Operation Mop Up as part of law enforcement efforts to remove enablers of crime and violence in the form of illicit substances and those who deal in them. According to the NDLEA, the move is to ensure peaceful inauguration of new administrations at national and subnational levels across the country on the 29th of May. Not less than 534 suspects have been arrested in the first few days of the commencement of the operation, during which tons of illicit drugs including cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, tramadol, codeine-based syrups, cannabis, sativa, and various new psychoactive substances, among others, were recovered across the state and the FCT. Top on the list with high arrests and seizures are Lagos, Kano, Abuja, Kaduna, Rivers, Bayelsa, Adamawa, Osun, Benue, and Plateau State. The appeal court in Abuja has set aside the injunction granted by the High Court of Kogi State restraining the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, from investigation and prosecution of officials of the state. The EFCC had on February 7, 2023, filed a motion before the appellate court asking for a stay of execution of the judgment of the Kogi State High Court in suit between Kogi State Government and the Commission and others delivered on December 12, 2022, as well as the consequential order made on the 6th of February 2023. In a unanimous judgment delivered yesterday, the appellate court dismissed the preliminary objection of the Kogi State Government and also held that the ex parte order of the trial court was unlawful. The sum of 300,000 naira was awarded against the Kogi State Government and its officials. The appellate court further directed the Chief Judge of Kogi State, Justice Josiah Majebi, to transfer the matter to another judge. In other news, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the appointment of Oluwatoyin Madain as the substantive Accountant General of the Federation. This was contained in a statement signed by the Director of Communications, Mohammed Ahmed, today in Abuja. The head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Folashade Yemi-Eson, stated that the appointment took effect from May 18, 2023. Madain was born on 7th of March 1965 in Iperu Remo Ikene local government area of Ogun State, and until her appointment, she was the Director of Finance and Accounts in the office of the head of the Civil Service of the Federation. The Osun State Government under Governor Ademola Adeleke and the Joint Labour Movement, JLM, in the state have disagreed over a proposed staff audit of civil servants by the Adeleke's administration. According to reports, Office of the Head of Service had procured the service of a private consultancy firm, Saleh T-Bot Consulting, to carry out the staff audit. Findings revealed that the consultancy firm had commenced distribution of forms to civil servants across the state to fill out for the exercise. However, the leadership of the Osun Joint Labour Movement rejected the staff auditing outrightly, saying the exercise will subject workers in the state to unnecessary hardship, as the chairman of JLM, Adekola Adebowale, kicked against the exercise. Adebowale said, considering the past experiences of Osun workers in exercises of this nature, the entire joint labor movement in the state totally rejects any form of contractual agreement or consultancy services that will further bring untold hardship on the workers and pensioners of Osun State. Speaking to our news team, the Osun NLC Caretaker Committee Chairperson Modupe Ola Oyedele stated that the stakeholders were aware of the staff audit, which they did not object to. However, they were not satisfied with some of the questions being asked in the form. The NLC Caretaker Committee Chairperson, however, assured the workers of amendments. It was, however, gathered that the fear of retrenchment of some civil servants is the reason the Joint Labour Movement rejected the proposed staff audits.
Staff audits shouldn't be anything workers should dread. It's a welcome idea to us, because it's all about taking the inventory of the workforce of the states. But we won't want it to be done in such a way that the workers will be victimized, or the outcome of it will be to the detriment of the workforce of Osun State. And this is what we had already discussed with we had a meeting with the head of service when it was about taking place. He called all the stakeholders in trade union, and we agreed that we don't have issue with government taking the stock or the inventory or knowing the total number of the workforce in the state is good, because we ourselves, we are not in support of ghost worker or any other thing that can drain the purse of the state unnecessarily. But having said all that, we believe that the way we agree with the head of service, because I know when it comes to the workforce in the state is the number one, we believe that is what will take place. But unfortunately, when the consultant came on board to commence their exercise. The consultant was not taking it. The form was designed in such a way that we are not comfortable with it because of some personal information being asked that necessarily in our own understanding has nothing to do with the main purpose of our assignment. They said anything that we want to cause issue, especially with the workforce, they will not want that. There are any information requested for on the form that we are not comfortable with, they are going to ask the consultant to remove it. And with that, I believe everything is okay because we have a listening.
In Bauchi State, over 250 households have been displaced after a windstorm wreaked havoc in Inkil, a suburb of Bauchi and Zoro villages in the Darazo local government area of the state. 5 people are said to have been injured as a result of the incident. Authorities of the State Emergency Management Agency today confirmed the 2 separate incidents and said relief items were being given to the victims. SEMAS, the Director of Relief and Rehabilitation in Bauchi, Bala Lame, described the incident as devastating, as it warned residents to expect more natural disasters this season based on the forecast of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. Lame advised that adequate precaution be taken to avoid others falling victim. Moving on, Nigeria's First Lady Aisha Buhari has said Nigerian presidents have no need to travel abroad for medical treatment following the inauguration of the 21 billion naira presidential wing of the State House Medical Center. Mrs. Buhari stated this when she joined President Muhammadu Buhari and other dignitaries for the commissioning ceremony of the facility situated in the premises of the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The president's wife told State House correspondents that she established the idea of the wing 6 years ago after the extensive stay of her husband abroad for medical treatment. She assured that with the facility in place, Nigerian presidents and their family members will no longer need to go abroad for treatment, but may only fly medical experts to assist their colleagues in the country. The United Nations warned today that 1 billion people in 43 countries are at risk of cholera. The UN says it did not have the resources to fight the outbreak, and the longer it took to start wagging the battle, the worse the situation will get. Between the World Health Organization and the Children's Agency, UNICEF, the UN is seeking $640 million to fight the infectious disease, warning of a cholera catastrophe if action is not ramped up immediately. So far this year, 24 countries have reported cholera outbreaks compared to 15 by mid-May last year. Countries that are not usually affected by cholera are being affected, and case fatality rates are far exceeding the typical 1 in 100. Gray blamed the rise in cases on poverty, conflicts, and climate change, as well as the population displacement that they trigger, which take people away from safer sources of food and water and from medical support. The founder of First City Monument Bank FCNB, Shubomi Balogun, has passed away at the age of 89. Confirming the business titan's demise in a statement today on Twitter, Governor Dapo Abiodun of Ogun State noted that the late octogenarian's unwavering commitment and remarkable contributions will continue to inspire generations to come. According to reports, Balogun, who was born March 9, 1934 in his hometown of Ijebu, Ogun State, passed away in London in a London hospital this morning. And on the foreign scene, leaders of the world's richest democracies have agreed to stiffen sanctions against Russia, while also stressing the need to reduce reliance on trade with China. In a joint statement released today, they said the sanctions include the export of industrial machinery, tools, and other technology that Russia uses to rebuild its war machine. Earlier, hundreds of anti-war demonstrators staged rallies in the Japanese city of Hiroshima in the build-up to the G7 summit carrying banners reading "No Nuclear War" and "No Imperialist" G7 Summit.
Leaders of the world's richest democracies agreed on Friday to stiffen sanctions against Russia and pledged financial support for Ukraine as its president, Volodymyr Zelensky, prepares to join them in the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The event began Friday morning with Kishida welcoming the visiting leaders and officials at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park, where they laid wreaths for the thousands of people who were killed when the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the city in 1945. The group of 7 leaders, including the United States, Japan, Germany, Britain, France, Canada, and Italy, are also expected to address growing tension between their economies and China during their summit that runs until Sunday. Officials said Zelensky would attend in person over the weekend. The leaders said in a joint statement existing measures against Russia would be broadened, and any exports that could help it in its 15-month war against Ukraine would be restricted across the G7 countries. Amid evidence that existing sanctions were being weakened by circumvention, they said the group was engaging with countries through which any restricted G7 goods, services, or technology could transit through to Russia. This includes exports of industrial machinery, tools, and other technology that Russia uses to rebuild its war machine, they said in a joint statement, adding that efforts would continue to restrict Russian revenues from its trade in metals and diamonds. Breakdowns of German trade data show that its exports to countries bordering Russia have risen sharply, fueling concerns about the re-exportation of goods from those neighboring states. Having emerged as the world's richest nations after World War II, the G7 democracies have become increasingly challenged by an ascendant China and unpredictable Russia. They are focusing on how to warn the world's second biggest economy against what they see as its threats to global supply chains and economic security without alienating a powerful and important trade partner. Temitokbe Ajijala Oluwola, Western Spring Television News.
In the meantime, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says some countries preferred to turn a blunt eye to Russia's illegal annexation of Ukrainian land. He stated this when he addressed the Arab League summit holding in Jeddah, stating that Ukraine will never submit to any foreigner or colonizer. Mr. Zelensky said Ukrainians never chose the war, urging leaders to take an honest look at the current situation. Mr. Zelensky also highlighted how the war in Ukraine had affected Muslims in Crimea, noting that Crimea was the first to suffer under the Russian occupation.
Invaders and anyone who defends children of his nation from enslavement, every such warrior is on the path of justice. And I'm proud to represent such warriors and the entire Ukrainian people. Ukrainians has never chosen the war. Our troops didn't go to other lands. We do not engage in annexations and plunder of other nations' resources, but we will never submit to any foreigners or colonizers. That's why we fight, and I'm sure all your nations will understand this, our main emotion, and I'm also sure all your nations will understand the main call I want to leave here in Jeddah, a noble call to all of you to help protect our people, including Ukrainian Muslim community. With me here, Ukrainian Muslim community. With me here is the Honorable Mustafa Dzhemilev, the leader of the Crimean Tatar people, one of the indigenous peoples of Ukraine, whose home is Crimea, the center of Muslim culture in Ukraine. For centuries, the Crimean Tatar have been and should remain an integral and strong part of the Muslim community of the world. But Crimea was the first to suffer from the Russian occupation.
In the Middle East, after more than a decade of isolation, President Bashar al-Assad of the war-torn Syria has been welcomed back into the Arab League. President al-Assad today attended the regional bloc's 32nd summit that kicked off in Saudi Arabia's port city of Jeddah for the first time since his country's suspension following the eruption of war in Syria in 2011. During his speech, he said the summit was a historic opportunity to address crises across the region. He added that he hopes it marks the beginning of a new phase of Arab action for solidarity for peace, development, and prosperity in the region instead of war and destruction. He further stated that Syria will always belong to the Arab world, but called for non-interference in the internal affairs of Arab states. In the United Kingdom, the man responsible for running a multi-million-pound fraud website used by scammers to trick people into handing over their bank details has been jailed. 35-year-old T.J. Fletcher pleaded guilty to running Ispoof, a website that allowed criminals and fraudsters to appear as if they were calling from banks, tax offices, and other official bodies in an attempt to defraud victims. They posed as representatives from banks including Barclays, Santander's, HSBC, Lloyds, Halifax, First Direct, NatWest, Nationwide, and TSB. The total losses of frauds enabled by Ispoof in the UK alone exceeded £43 million, with total global losses estimated to be at least £100 million. Judge Sally Cahill jailed Fletcher for 13 years and 4 months today. At one point, as many as 20 people every minute were being targeted by criminals calling from maxed phone numbers using technology bought from Ispoof. The Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor, Kate Anderson, who spoke outside the court, said the cost to the many victims in the case has not only been financial.
T.J. Fletcher was a founder and administrator of Ispoof, a website which sold other fraudsters tools to deceive and scam thousands of victims in the UK and across the world. Through the website, criminals bought the services provided by Fletcher to commit fraud on an industrial scale, resulting in total losses of more than £43 million to the victims in the UK alone. Fraud is not a victimless crime, and the cost to the many victims in this case has not just been financial. It has also had a huge emotional impact, causing extreme distress and devastation to those affected, many of whom had their bank accounts emptied and their life savings stolen from them. This was a complex and challenging case, and I would like to thank the Metropolitan Police and the many national and international law enforcement partners who worked with the CPS to secure the evidence for us to present in court. We were able to show how Fletcher was instrumental in the setting up of the website and how it gave people the tools to defraud others. We will continue to work with investigators to prosecute the fraudsters who used the website, and we will be pursuing confiscation proceedings against Fletcher to recover the money he made from his criminality. We hope that this case will encourage all of those who think that they've been the victim of the fraud to report it to police or to Action Fraud. Every report can help prevent another person become a victim and enable us to prosecute offenders.
Still ahead, lawmakers approve $800 million loan request of President Muhammadu Buhari. We have more on this and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
Jeremiah Obafemi on March 6, 1905. Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
And you're welcome back. Now to business. A member House of Representatives Committee on Loans, Aid and Debt Management, Abubakar Ahmad, says federal lawmakers have approved the $800 million loan request of President Muhammadu Buhari. The lawmaker, however, argued that the loan will not be utilized by the Buhari administration, saying the incoming government will deploy its own approach to utilize the loan. Buhari had earlier sent a letter to the Senate seeking approval to take a loan to the tune of $800 million from the World Bank to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. This follows the federal government's April announcement of an $800 million World Bank grant targeting 50 million vulnerable Nigerians or 10 million households as part of its subsidy palliative measures. However, the request was met with rejection in some quarters, especially among the civil society organizations. KPMG International has said Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio may exceed 100% in 2023. In its macroeconomic snapshot released, the professional services firm raised concerns over Nigeria's risk of sliding into critical debt servicing problems unless urgent actions were explored to significantly raise revenue. On the recent Senate approval of the scrutinization of 22.7 trillion naira ways and means advances provided to the government by the Central Bank of Nigeria, KPMG said Nigeria's debt, which hit 46.3 trillion naira by the end of 2022, will immediately rise to about 70 trillion naira. The firm said with the 8.8 trillion naira expected, new borrowings from both domestic and external means in the 2023 state and federal budgets, the total debt stock will likely stand at about 77.8 trillion naira by the end of 2023. In 2022, Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio was 80.6%, a figure far above World Bank suggested 22.5% for low-income countries like Nigeria. Tuta absoluta, also known as tomato Ebola, is currently ravaging tomato farms in part of the country, costing as much as 1.3 billion naira in economic dimensions with scarcity looming. Olayinka Ali visited the Alekwodo market in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, to ascertain the scarcity and price of the produce.
Nigerians are faced with the fresh or cheapest tomato scarcity hits markets across the country again, though the development was envisaged a few weeks back due to the resurgence of the deadly tomato disease, Tuta absoluta, also known as tomato Ebola in Kano State. But nobody, not even the farmers, hardly anticipated the extent of the devastation on farms, as the supply gap across the country has widened tremendously. Unfortunately, the situation may get worse in the next few weeks, as there seems to be no solution in sight. based on reports that the disease might spread to other states. Currently, based on a market survey in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, the price of the produce has increased with about 100% at the popular Likowodo market. A basket which sells around 15,000 naira to 20,000 naira earlier in the year has increased between 55,000 naira and 60,000 naira in the last 2 weeks. A paint plastic size sold for about 500 naira and 800 naira now sells between 3,000 naira and 3,200 naira. The volume usually sold for 200 naira has increased to 500 naira, while the least sold in the cone-shaped model sold between 50 naira and 100 naira has been pegged at 200 naira. As a result, the pain of consumers and farmers who are still grappling with the negative impact of the naira redesign policy has deepened. Many households are currently spending extra cost to buy the produce, while those who could not afford are devising alternatives. The crop season, which was first reported in Kano State, had the early period of dry season, crippling hectares of cultivated farms, has spread to 4 other states: Kaduna, Katsina, Jigawa, and Gombe, leaving growers in irreparable losses, running into billions of naira. Orelu Afawole and Abiola Ogunsoya, tomato sellers at the Alekuwodo market to Osogbo, both stated that the Hausa supplier hinted them that the tuta absoluta is a major cause of the crisis, which they hope solution would be profounded.
Because of pests, the pests in the farm, because of diseases, pests and diseases, and the fertilizer they are using is so expensive. So many stuff like that, and people are really complaining. Most people are not even using tomato anymore; they are using tomato paste.
That farmer tell us that Ebola tomato make tomato cost now. I'm not know the reason, but he say Ebola tomato. The people complain because it's too expensive. Past the one I bought sell before. Basket now is 60,000. The one I sell 100 now is 2,000 naira. 200 now. The one I sell 1,000 is 2,005.
The rise in price of tomatoes has been alarming as buyers lament about the cost of buying. Sellers are complaining about the low patronage. Farmers have, however, been admonished to find a lasting solution to the problem. Olayinka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
Elsewhere, Rishi Sunak has said he wants to ensure Russia pays the price for the war in Ukraine after announcing new sanctions targeting Russian exports. Speaking at the G7 summit in Hiroshima, Japan, the Prime Minister said he was leading the way with new sanctions on Russia. He said he hoped other countries will follow suit. Russian diamond imports to the UK are among the items that will be banned by the government. The Russian diamond imports to the UK are among the items worth about $4 billion in exports in 2021.
I think we all believe in a world where people play by the rules. We believe in democracy, freedom, the rule of law, and it's right that we stand up for those things. Again, we're better able to do that if we do it together. So we've taken the lead on announcing new sanctions on Russia. I'm hopeful and confident that our partner countries will follow, as they have done when we've done this previously. That will make the sanctions more effective, ensure that Russia pays a price for its illegal activity. And again, this is something we can be proud of in the UK because we've taken a leadership role.
And to some sports stories, Mikel Arteta insists Arsenal deserve respect for their unexpected Premier League title challenge, despite the collapse that allowed Manchester City to move into pole position. City will be crowned champions, and if second place Arsenal lose at Nottingham Forest on Saturday, or if the leaders beat Chelsea on Sunday. One win from their final 3 games is enough for City to take the title for a 5th time in 6 seasons. The Gunners have endured criticism of their failure to hold off City, with last weekend's 3-0 defeat against Brighton sparking questions about the character of Arteta's squad. But Arsenal boss Arteta said his team had surpassed expectations by pushing treble chasers City so hard.
And we are still there. 2 games to go. We can still be champions against probably the best team in the history of the Premier League for 10 months. And we are still there. 2 games to go. We are still there, and we're not gonna bottle that. That's for sure. What happens next season? It will depend a lot in what we do, how we evolve, and how we start. But that prediction is very difficult to do today. I said arguably that they are. and where they are competing in the other competition, what they did the other day in the Champions League semi-final. But as well, it shows the level of this league. That team has the capacity to win 105 points, 110 points if they want. They haven't done that this season because of the level of that league. And we've been there with them toe-to-toe for 10 months.
Chelsea caretaker manager Frank Lampard has said Manchester City are a fantastic team as his struggling side prepare to take on the defending champions this Sunday. Lampard, speaking in his pre-game press conference, said credit has been given to them for their consistency, adding that they are coming very close to becoming the greatest team. On City's goal poacher Erling Haaland scoring as many league goals as Chelsea this season, the Blues legend said it was a fantastic start, noting that the other part about his side is another story.
Understand it quite well, the manager and the players, because it's a really strong and smooth machine. So full respect for them. Can't argue with that. I understand Mikel's saying in his words, but I think they are the best team in the world. And is it good for English football? Yeah, why not? Because I think you have to push the standards of the league, and others have to react to that. We have this incredible brand here where the league's improve year on year. As far as I see it, the competitive nature of staying in the Premier League, making the top four, and Manchester City have set standards, and the rest of the league have to try and aspire to that. It's not easy because obviously they've done things very clinically in a really good way over a number of years. But I think if we all take away our rivalry feelings, if you are a rival of Man City, you can't be anything but impressed by the nature of their game, how they play, especially watching them the other night. It was fantastic to watch. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
And that's all of this hour. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. Justice Mohammed Yunusa of the Federal High Court, Kano, has nullified the candidature of the Abia State Governor-elect Alex Otti and all the candidates of the Labour Party in Abia and Kano states. Justice Hamza Muhazu of the High Court in Abuja today granted an order of stay of execution on the suspension of the chairman of Labour Party, Julius Abure. Police in Anambra State say they have rescued 2 individuals who were kidnapped during Tuesday's attack on the U.S. consulate convoy in Ogbaro local government area. On the foreign scene, leaders of the world's richest democracies have agreed to stiffen sanctions against Russia, while also stressing the need to reduce reliance on trade with China. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Tunde Idowu. You have yourself a pleasant weekend. Good night.